Alright, we're back. Well, not fully. Sort of. I'll explain. It's been a minute since the end of our mission to the Navajo Nation. Truth be told, opening the car door to my driveway has never felt more tranquil. That was until I heard the passenger door swing open, and I could hear every single vertebrae in Isaac's back realign as he stretched. Ah, home sweet ranch compound, huh Dwight? Yes, for the foreseeable future, noting our long absence from each other and his seeming inability to recall the last better part of a decade, I have elected Isaac and check up at my place. Zeus has seemingly taken a liking to him, although truth be told, that 90-pound canine assault missile will take to just about anyone that will feed him. Sorry, back on track. We were looking at several weeks of downtime, which, despite the fact that I should have been focused on recuperation, I could only think of piecing together what's been happening. It's a flaw of mine. Once I'm hooked, I have to see something through to the end. I guess that's why I'm the maniac who didn't run from the Kazamoth estate and went to Afghanistan 4 separate times. Regardless, we had some non-combat objective, or so it seemed. Hey Dwight, you like decorating your house with handprints? Isaac quipped. My mind immediately thought back to the print indent I saw on the gutter and porch post. Yeah, don't mind them. It's a thing, I said as I dragged my gear back out of my trunk. Then, something he said made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. All of them? What did he mean by all of them? Well, I found out what he meant when I turned. And, on the wooden railing, the steps, doorway, at multiple points on the glass were more handprints coating the front of the house. I'd been gone for a few weeks, but this was new. This hadn't happened before. I dropped my gear on the porch and looked at some of them. They were embedded just a few millimeters into the wood, the glass, even the stone, just enough to be noticeable. All of them were human-like, 4 fingers and a thumb. But, I don't know. They were how a cave painting is. Archaic, weird, enigmatic. Just like the traps that were warped and bent impossibly. Just like the 100 dead birds that passed inexplicably. This was another probe. The only thing greeting us besides the wind and Zeus's sniffing and growling at some of the prints was the silence. All eyes were on us. That was until Isaac broke the air with an all too giddy, "Do you have a craving for property that's got demonic intent? Or is this all just happenstance?" Guess I'm just lucky. Truth be told, getting used to Isaac again wasn't too much of a challenge. To be honest, between him and Zeus, having people around this place again was much better than absolute solitude. Though we had our fair share of weird moments. Zeus seems to be sticking to the area immediately around the house when he trots outside. There's an eerie feeling I've been getting every time I take my ATV out and scout the lands. Isaac's been telling me the walls are talking, though that may just be the alcohol. Like a serious amount of alcohol. We're out in an isolated part near the Rockies. Where does he get that much? Never mind, rambling again, just like old times. The knocking. Did I tell you guys about the knocking? Well, there's knocking every time I go to get the coffee. Sometimes it's at a window, a wall, other times from the door. One day, Isaac went to go confront it, but I just told him, "Don't answer it. There's some things in this world you just don't mess with, and I've got some hella spiritual blood on my hands. It will always probably be weird for the rest of my life, but I guess that's just the parameters, the hands I've been dealt." Things were starting to get worse though. Coyotes started to show up dead. Now, it's not unusual for Zeus to embrace his canine apex predator instincts and chase them down, then drag them back to the house to enjoy his kill, right where everyone, including the mailman, could see it. What was unusual was for a whole pack of them to be left right at the bottom of the front steps, gutted brutally to where they were all peeled and ripped open, their blood and innards painting the front of the damn house. I remember nearly stepping in them when we went to go check, door slowly opening as I kept my Glock to my right. Isaac had elected to creep out a shotgun and scan the front. "Okay, yeah, this place is definitely screwed. You ever think about relocating?" he remarked. "Even if I wanted to, I don't think this is something you can run from." I remember Zeus sniffing at the pile, only to back off and growl at it with his ears back, refusing to eat any of it. We went to my office on the second floor, where I had the entire property's motion sensors, cameras, and surveillance set up. It happened last night, although no motion sensors triggered it. We found the point of appearance, and, well, 2:17 a.m. The porch is clear and everything is fine. Night vision on my cameras gives us damn near a 360 view of the property, and every inch of it from where the pavement turns to gravel and then to grass. Then, it all appeared instantaneously. The dead coyotes, the blood to the point where some of the lenses were even smeared. All of it. Isaac and I zoomed in on the exact millisecond. Maybe there was some cutoff or something to show what happened. Nothing. 0.01. It's not there. 0.02. All of it. Whatever did this didn't do it through conventional means. What do you think it could mean? Isaac asked, flipping through all of the cameras showing every angle of the carnage. I'll tell you what I told him. Something was sending a message, in the same way bodies are strung up at the front of bridges to ward off enemies. This was the same thing. Isaac had a different theory. He pointed to an image of the pile. The blood is one thing, but the bodies? They seem to be in the form of an offering. I was dumbfounded, and my face probably showed my confusion. What? My Idaho alcoholic went on to explain. Think about it. This is a crossroads, right? You got to the Dakotas to our north-ish. West is Red Rock territory. South is Texas and Oklahoma. This is a merging area of all kinds of nasty shit. That's why so many different things happen. We've seen uglies leave carcasses and stuff out as a warning. This, the way they're placed all together like a meat wicker basket, seems like they were presenting it to you. You gotta remember, things don't work like people do. If this is the way things worked, then it could happen on the opposite. Just as something could show you respect, something else could target you. We kept moving though. Carcasses went in the trash, and I took a power washer to the front of my house, and after some replacing of tiles, wood, the majority of the handprints were gone. I was tired of running, and I wasn't about to let anything scare or force me off this land. Well, force us now, I guess, as this isn't a one-man circus anymore. Likewise, there's been developments on the grander scale. More specifically, the shadow war PEXU is embroiled in against our adversaries. You ever wonder who leads the Blackwood Brotherhood? It's a question that's been raised by many. While the new Advent has Ryan Evans, we all know that man's nothing more than a gray-skinned puppet with darkness behind his white toothy smile. After he appeared at that meeting, flanked by politicians from North and South America, Europe, leading figures in economics and big tech, an investigation was launched by the CIA's Special Collection Service to track when this huge shift in momentum for them happened. They sorted through tens of thousands of emails, phone calls, texts, and found almost nothing relating to the new Advent at all. Then, a singular message shared on an encrypted messaging app by some lower-level informant shells connected to our adversaries sent everyone into a panic. Belial. In Hebrew, it means the devil. In the context they found it in, it reignited a manhunt that had gone cold nearly 32 years ago, believed to be the victim of a death camp in the Middle East. He was being tracked by Israeli intelligence for quite some time after a special mission unit they sent in to capture him all turned up dead. No wound, blemishes, nothing. Just cold and unalive. After that, he fell off the grid, and ever since then, it's been nothing but theories connecting him to the primordial death cult we currently face. Cells found in Denmark, Great Britain talked about an augur from Damascus, instructing them to revive the paraphor, leading to shit we are still fighting to this day. Every connection from groups or training groups we get stops. No names, no ranks. Just the tale of a man with dark red skin, sunken eyes and a bright white smile. His lips supposedly gone from acid burns that also line his body. Yet, it was all conjecture, drawing in scribbles of madmen who died when they allowed ancient shit to crawl out of their bodies like molted animals. Until one single message. Belial will lead the way. Then, it all hit the fan. 2 operatives PEXU had with us, one from the agency and the other Homeland Security, were found dead outside of a site that doesn't exist on any manifest in the United States Internal Security Directorate. No documentation exists because all of its funding is from black budget. The recovery teams assigned to retrieve them became casualties themselves, as whoever left them there carved glyphs into their eyes. the same one the Blackwood uses for indoctrination. Shortly after, deep in the Amazon, ABIN, Brazil's premier intelligence network, was searching for a facility hidden in the rainforest connected to the cult. Attached to them were some members of the Special Activities Division. Almost all of them didn't make it out alive. Half of them were grievously injured. A completely compartmentalized operation was compromised and ambushed. Worst yet was, the place they were hunting for disappeared. Every piece of metal, everything from the satellite photos was gone, like it never existed. 2 steps forward, 3 back into the wood chipper. I won't lie, my security office has turned into that of a makeshift war room with pelican cases and tough boxes lining the walls, a rack securing my armament, and a corkboard of all I have learned complete with red string. The noose was tightening around our neck. 2 intelligence agencies experiencing major breaches. Very few within the FBI can be trusted, and even MI6 needs to work in the shadows. Everyone from mega churches to corner stores is starting to wear those golden bands, and no one seems to be noticing. Not a peep or a whisper. Anyone who does goes missing. Approximately 110,000 a year, and counting. If even a tenth of that has been turned into vessels for ascension, then we are neck deep in enemies. Honestly, staring too deeply into it, all laid out like that, makes me nearly go mad sometimes. Sitting back in an armory knowing that just weeks ago, we fought through hell just to get ourselves an inch of breathing room. Oh Lord, don't tell me, you're going insane, aren't you? Isaac's voice managed to draw me out of it with an eye roll as he walked in and took an eye at the board. Hey Dwight, if you're succumbing to whatever MK Ultra stuff they pumped into your veins, give me a heads up so I can get out of the blast zone, alright? We seemed to stare at each other for a good long while as he took a closer step to me, chuckling. I'm just messing with ya. But for real, did they put anything in your coffee? I mean, you never drank coffee last time I seen you, so I'm wondering if you're the real Dwight. Isaac somehow manages to say so much and yet nothing at the same time. He leaned back against the wall next to it, crossing his arms. So, what now? I shrugged. I leaned back and grabbed my coffee that was sitting atop a pallet of ammo cans. We wait until we hear more. Oh, come on. There's gotta be something we can do. Call up that Hogwarts fellow of yours, Montgomery. I corrected him. Yeah, sure, we can still do something. Get back out there, hop in our souped-up mystery machine and take it to him, he said emphatically, pumping his fist in the air. A souped-up mystery that had the transmission blown to hell ever since I had to floor it over a Sasquatch back in the Dakotas. More on that later. Isaac, we're part of an organization. Well, me. But I am too? Isaac said with the excitement of a kid on Christmas. I pinched the bridge of my nose, realizing my mistake. No, I am. You are unofficially by association. Still, how's the pay? Terrible. The benefits? Worse. So, what's the incentive? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Duty. Oh good God, you people really are insane. You think? Mortals using the modern day's best armaments to cut through the hordes of wherever the hell to send whatever the hell back to where it was summoned from by other mortals. I've seen more of our people succumb to injuries that can't be determined by our laws of universe than slashes and cuttings. Yet, I still clock in. There's definitely something wrong with me. I guess that gives us some time to think. Or well, remember? Isaac said, rubbing his head. It was no secret his lack of memory was weighing on him. He does a good job putting up a front. You've had no contact with anyone? Haven't been back there in... I asked. His eyes snapped to me. Too long. We had ourselves the cult. Then there was Theodore Kazimoth, my old boss, who was obsessed with seeing how he could industrialize the primordial to advance humanity. Advancement that the 4th Special Forces Group encountered on more than one occasion and lost more than a few of their own. We had been so dug in fighting a subversive apocalypse. What the hell was Theodore able to do the last 6 years? We were going to have to find out later. I'm hitting the hay. Let me know if some demon tries to tear our hearts out in the middle of the night, yeah? Isaac said, heading for the door. We'll go. If you get the chance before me, dump my body down a flight of stairs. I joked. Isaac stopped at the door as he looked around, then back to me. Hey Dwight? Yeah? I'm glad you're back. The sincerity in his words seemed to sober me up. The same feeling that drew me back to this years ago. That's why I keep marching on. Not insanity or money, duty. Someone had to make the shit in the dark afraid. Someone had to go in there and get vengeance for the grieving spouse, the crying child, the mourning parent, or those who went alone and no one to remember their name. I did. Every single person I have gotten some pound of justice for. I woke up later around witching hour to grab a water. Zeus stayed in bed as I headed downstairs with iron in my pocket, just in case someone wanted to try. I rounded the banister as I reached the bottom of my stairs. My front door just ahead of them, as the entire living room was laid out with a couch, chimney, table and all. I stopped as my eyes snapped to the chair in the corner. I drew my pistol and tried to hit the light. Nothing. My finger felt the rail underneath where it should have been. A light then shined on me, causing me to squint my eyes. It aimed down as my eyes adjusted. It was my tack light. "You rely on your equipment too much, Dwight Nolan," the figure sitting in the chair said, that of an impoverished male's voice. The moonlight just barely missed them as shadows cloaked them. They tossed the tack light to me, causing it to bounce across the floor. With my pistol still aimed, I reached down and placed it back on, and got a good look on them. In a dark suit and dress shoes was a bald man. Gray skin with dozens of stitches with different sutures lined their head. A black set of shades hit their eyes as on their lap they held what looked to be a chalkboard. Dwight Anthony Nolan, 39 years old, son, leader, killer. Telemarks were underneath, hundreds of telemarks, each one of them dark red, whispering to me. I knew what they meant. A name, an age, a birth and death date. Some were the things I had been ordered to cut down. Target packages filled in the dozens. Over 100. I looked to them, then back to the man. "Who the fuck are you?" "A watcher. Numbers keeper mostly." "You got some sort of point in doing this?" "I've got half a mind to. You've got a lot of blood on your hands," the stitched up freak said, accusingly. Even with the shades, I could tell its eyes were piercing, however they looked. There's a seventh sense that joins the sixth sense of danger alert humans have. I like to call it ancient instinct. Whenever you come across something you can tell has been there since before the rocks were eroded, and has been a problem generationally, that's what that is. I've encountered it while hell marching many times through many mythological, hollowed ground. Something tells me the Watcher probably bumped elbows with God. Maybe literally. Still, I wasn't going to let it know the God dread I was feeling. What, sad I put down your friends? Or something in the woods? Or the swamp? Or across the ocean? I'm not gonna apologize. I growled, my finger well on the trigger as I started to apply force. What about them? It said, staring blankly at me, pointing to another telemark. Alyssa, age 23, born in the Navajo Nation, died because we weren't fast enough to reach her house to tell her to get to safety. Its hand pointed to another, a small boy, 5, killed because I took a longer route to track down a Wet'suwet'en in eastern Canada. These weren't just kills. These were people I had failed to save. Sometimes it was because I had a wrong lead. Other times, I was just too slow. Some, there was nothing I could do, but it was on my soul. Protectors have continued to form a membrane of annoyance for thousands of years, Dwight Nolan. We are closer than ever to shifting the momentum back to the era where you hid in the caves, protected by a campfire and a stick. Don't hide it. Futility is a noticeable trait in human eyes. You're well aware of the deficit you're in. It said with a glee in its voice. It was well aware of the pressure going on around the world. It knew that I knew as well. I didn't give it an inch. Well, you won't be there to see it, I said, pulling the trigger. The gun didn't fire. I raised an eyebrow as suddenly I could hear pounding on the door that made my heart shoot straight into my throat. No, Dwight Nolan, you won't. You didn't really think hiding in the Rockies would save you, would it? My light went out, and I woke up in bed. That being said, I woke up to a chorus of alerts coming from the speaker on my nightstand. Multiple intrusions detected. Multiple intrusions detected. Condition Alamo. Condition Alamo. Condition Alamo. Something had followed us home. Dossier. Condition Alamo. Alamo. In every military, there's a contingency when deployed for whenever the wire is breached and the enemy has entered. The Poles I worked with like to use the term red. A Brit unit I worked with preferred direct fire Charlie. I've always stuck with one I've encountered at a number of American FOBs, Alamo. Zeus was barking up a storm as I could hear banging coming from the front door downstairs. For reference, I bought a steel-lined reinforced door with heavy-duty hinges and several locks. That being said, I had also gotten into scraps with things that cut through material tougher than it with no issues. I had minutes at most. I scrambled out of bed with my pistol on my nightstand, drawing it and scanning around. Zeus was standing on the bed, growling. The banging had stopped as I looked. No moonlight, just like there had been hours ago. I approached the curtains and peeked just under the edge to see, only to find an eye staring back. It was completely white, the iris gone with a pinprick needle for a pupil. My blood ran cold. I remember that kind of eye. I stumbled back and aimed my boomstick, but only darkness remained. Then, laughter, dozens of different cackles, jeers echoed from the outside. This wasn't right. I had been here before. I had encountered something exactly like this, back when I was just a security guard, hired to protect that fucking forest estate. Fuck this. We need to get up quick. I opened my door and shined my pistol light around, clear left and right. A few doors ahead of me were the bathroom and a study. Directly to my right was the armory. I took a step out, watching the stairs down to my left, only to be deafened when a gunshot rang out to my right. The round barely missed me as it hit the doorway of the bathroom just in front of me, the snap and wood shavings from it showering the area as I ducked down and gripped my ear, aiming my boomstick. It was Isaac, who immediately waved his hands. "Ah, hell, sorry." "Isaac, what the fuck?" I exclaimed, though I could barely hear him as he walked over and shouted. I nursed my ear as he asked, "Hello? You hearing me?" "No, you deafened me. The hell did you say?" I asked. His answer sent a chill up my spine. "Look, I had already seen you just before the house started to scream at us, and you nearly bit my fucking head off." "Seen me?" I stood up as I scanned around. "Isaac, what the hell are you talking about?" "I woke up just before the alarms started to go off. You were creeping over my bed, and I was getting a bad vibe. Then you tried to leap on me, and I grabbed this and started to fire into you," he said, showing the Glock 19 I had given him as a bedside carry. This was odd because that was sure to have woken me up. I looked to him, my ears still pounding. "Well, where did I go?" I asked. A crash from downstairs caused both of us to turn and aim at the stairwell down. Zeus had crept into the hall and began to growl at it. I reached over and pulled him by his collar. "Isaac, into the safe room, now!" All three of us got into that armory as Isaac locked the door. I took to the desk connected to the security system as Isaac went to work preparing himself some firepower. "What the hell is going on?" he asked. And frankly, I was wondering the same thing. I pulled up the grid to my property. Out of the several dozen motion detectors and trail cams I had set up, over 60% of them were offline. The rest were in states of damage, flickering, and only a few worked, one of which was one adjacent to my driveway. A single pinprick eye looked through the tall grass. Then, before I could even register it, a flash of silver, blackened nails on a bloated dead hand pried the camera's steel and concrete embedded post out of the ground and smashed the unit. That skin, that hand. I switched between the cameras. So many of them were out of commission. Some were smashed and nearly tore off their mounts. Others just flashed LED colors with fragments of their vision still intact. The driveway ones were already taken out. The one on the front of the house was completely offline. Something had already invaded the property and taken out our eyes. Not only that, but it knew where to look. I saw the notification for sound being registered. I got some crackles, static, like I expected. But then, cackles. Deep, warped cackles of what sounded like a dozen people forced into one. I had stopped this. I thought I did. Then, just as I did one more run back through all of the cameras, Unit 21, mounted near the peak of the back of the house, highest up, registered a voice. It came through calm, almost a whisper, but like some sort of predator that caught its prey. It called out, "Nolan." A sudden thrash, as something monstrous running across the roof shook the whole damn house, caused me to almost lose balance as I held onto the house. "What in the bayou fuck is going on?" Isaac said, looking over my shoulder. I looked back to see he had gotten himself 2 bandoliers of shotgun shells, including a belt, while in his tank top and shorts. Zeus was barking as the sound of something crawling around the outside caught his attention. Then, the movement on the roof stopped. Towards the center, wet tearing and ripping, flesh and tendons, I know that sound anywhere, echoed. As thuds sounded on the roof, I switched off the cameras and made for my equipment table, prepping my rifle as I pulled my belt and plate carrier on. "Is that shit sounding like what I think it's sounding?" Isaac asked, aiming a shotgun at whatever the hell was deciding to demonically touch every ceiling tile out there. He was feeling the familiar feeling too. This rhymed all too closely to whatever the hell was at the Casamoth estate. "Those intelligence leaks," I pointed out. "You think they found us as well?" he asked. "I think something found us." I tried to key into my radio. "Maine, this is November 1. Nothing. I tried again. "November 1 to Maine. Serious situation. I need support." Still nothing. Dead silent. I looked back to him. Either our comms are cut, or our friends are preoccupied. From outside, towards the front, a thunderous roar sounded, followed by what I knew damn sure was my front door being forced off its hinges, and the snap of my banister soon after. Isaac snapped towards the door with his shotgun as I pulled down my night vision, my rifle's laser trained on the door as well. "So, what's the plan? Sit tight and wait for help?" Isaac asked. "Help ain't coming, Isaac. And by the time we even get a word out for help, these things will be right on top of us," I said, the sounds growing louder. The barrel of his shotgun dipped ever slightly. "So, what do we do?" "Simple. We get the hell off my lawn." Zeus began to bark as a set of footsteps raced up the stairs and towards the door could be heard. The sound of a woman's full long scream growing louder. It began to slam on the door again and again. Finally, it gave way, and she stumbled in some tattered gown barely covering her dead skin, soaked in what looked like tar. Her arms were bisected long ways as she clawed at the floor, more insect than human. Through her long hair, she looked to us, her face peeking through. I don't even know how she was even screaming, just a gap in her skull where her face was. She roared again. Jesus hell!" Isaac yelled as he blasted her in the chest with his shotgun. The scatter blast tore through her hip and momentarily stopped her. However, she used her multiple limbs to launch right at us. I responded with a group of shots, tearing through her torso. She fell onto the large wooden ready table I had in the center, sending ammo cans of rounds tumbling off and tools flying. Zeus barked, snapping his jaws at her from the ground. She stood up, and Isaac got one hell of a good shot at her shoulder. She went flying back against the wall, Zeus grabbing onto her leg and beginning to kill shake it out of her socket. I joined and fired several rounds, the snap of my suppressor echoing as they impacted her brainstem. That corrosive shit splattered all along the wall as she grew still. Zeus seemed to back off. He could tell from the smell that none of that was good. A moment of still occurred, and I closed the distance. I used the tip of my suppressor to move her head to the side as that shit fell onto the floor. I watched it impact the floorboards. The black ichor seemed to move. My mind thought back to the plastic baggie of shit I had encountered. Between the coloration, the eyes, the laughs, the substance. "This is from the Casamoth estate," I stated my theory as I knelt down next to the corpse. "Ain't no way though. I read your entire memoir on that. You killed those freaks," Isaac said, scanning around with his Mossberg, not wanting to even think of the theory. "Then tell me, Isaac, why the hell are they filled with the exact same shit from South Missouri?" I barked back. Our debate was cut short as a rumbling could be heard inside of the walls. We could hear every single shuffle, a paint movement as it closed in on the vent. It fucking popped off. A set of bloated dead arms, skin that cut itself on the metal edges and spewed pus, reached through as they aggressively tried to force themselves through. 2 slimy hits, eyes sunken in dark rings, pinprick eyes and brown toothy smiles were attempting to force themselves through, to the point the wall around the vent opening contorted and bent. "Isaac, Nolan, Isaac, Nolan." Their voices sung with each other as they screamed. There was something about their aggression, their hatred. I could feel through their forced smiles that was just shocking, making you feel like prey. I didn't say a word. I fired my rifle, tearing through their skin. Isaac let loose with his shotgun. The resulting blast of buckshot tore through the vent, showering the trio in pellets and broken metal as the floor and wall around was torn up. All that remained was a pile of mess that was once human. I turned towards him. Still skeptical now? Isaac steadied himself the best he could, the stock in his armpit as he sheepishly dug. Oh, for fuck's sake. He dug a flask out of his shorts and took a long sip. Nah, I'm right here with you. For fuck's sakes, Isaac. I shook my head. He looked. What? They're invading. I'm standing our ground. I didn't say redecorate my entire fucking house with double odd buck while you're plastering it out. Our argument was cut short as the sounds of more of them from the stairwell could be heard. How about this? We clear this place of ghouls and I'll fund the reconstruction. Isaac quipped. With what money, Isaac? You sleep on my couch. Or well, figuratively. Or he'd be down there getting possessed and quartered by the neighborhood brigade right now. We beat them before. We can do it again. Let's go, I asserted to him. He nodded and followed. My laser scanned as we pushed into the hallway. Isaac cleared right as I pushed forward towards the stairs. He joined me as Zeus was at our feet, sniffing ahead. I was on the left side of the hall, my laser aimed down the stairs. I could see the remnants of the door hinges torn clean off. They were rated for 3,500 pounds of incoming force. Whatever came through here did so with a vengeance. We pushed down the stairs, my barrel leading the way and centered on the wide open front door as Isaac watched our flank. As I reached the ground floor, I shuffled right and pied around the opening. I could hear them running throughout the tall grass, laughing, whispering, eyes peeking out and then ducking back with speeds too quick for their hulking forms, all peeking through as they could see me better than my dual tubes could. Then from the tall grass, one of them bolted out. Incoming! I yelled. Heading over to the doorway, I fired as the grey mass closed the distance across my front area onto the porch. I fired rounds that cut through its back, lodged right in its body. Black splurts filled the area. And yet, it still kept its momentum. Move! That's all I could get out as Isaac ducked right. Zeus barked as the thing charged and knocked me clean off my ass through the air and into my couch. It didn't seem to care how many rounds I fired into it. I rolled off and groggily got a good look. Its still human torso was the crossroads for a horrifying monstrosity where dog-like legs met an army of centipede, but the chitin was made out of calcified black flesh. The other one was seemingly made of glass and had gaps between bones. The head was fighting between several different mouths, grey and sunken into its torso. Its sunken pinprick eyes centered on me. Whatever the hell happened to it, it decided to turn their soul into some sort of skin-split thing. Its voice was that of dozens roars, yells, and yet it semi-coherently all said, Nolan. I tried to back up as it reached down, the centipede arm gnawing at my plate carrier, tearing through the nylon corridor as I fired into its torso, sending chunks of flesh and bone flying out the back. Zeus leapt on top, sinking his teeth into its neck, causing it to yell what sounded like a cross between a tiger and a man. Isaac planted his shotgun right on the skull. The shot caused the entire thing to explode out, which completely showered me, and I didn't know what was worse, being covered in dead person or dead rotten beast. I forced my buttstock into the ground, my head still rolling around as Isaac took point and looked to me. How you feeling? You got knocked a country mile. I felt the base of my neck, and it still felt like it was on fire. Been worse, landed right on my neck. Quick, how many fingers am I holding up? Isaac, you're not holding up any. See, you're good. From the doorway to the kitchen, a set of elongated arms connected to a body that was stretched and contorted beyond human proportions. It stepped in, bow-legged. Its face, a human skull that had been buried and pushed into the collarbone area, sat below a smooth anglerfish-like top portion. Two sets of jaws, forced together, formed some horrifying maw that just hurt to look at, like knives being dragged down my bare bones. We quickly fired on it. It grabbed onto the ground around it and spat at us. That same tar-like shit. Isaac was quicker than I was. Some of it hit directly on the plate carrier, eating into my ATAC. The smell was awful. It began to fuck with me. I didn't know it until well into its effects, but soon I realized I was hallucinating. My eyes burned, my nose doing everything it could to exorcise the feeling to no avail. The pounding noise in my head felt like screams and chants. It felt real. Every gust of wind, Everything was hypersensitive. I scanned around, the ground unsteady. Then it lunged at me. I could feel its claws slashing into my skin. I screamed and fired at it, although it just degloved my arms like it was nothing. I could see the veins and blood underneath as it threw me into a wall, and it gave in. I stood up, and I was back. Upstairs? The thing came charging down, and I managed to clip the human skull underneath, causing it to stumble. As it did, I fired. The flash of my suppressor under knots, short, small, yet controlled as I tore through one of its legs. It then reached out and hooked my jaw, then pulled and yanked it clean off. The feeling of my tongue flapping around, my gasps for air. I dropped my rifle as it slashed at my face. I fell to the ground, back in the living room. Zeus was now gnawing at its head as it reached for him. Not my fucking dog. I fired an entire magazine into it, having switched to auto. It tore through its center of mass. I then charged forward and tackled it to the ground, the armored knuckles on my gloves being buried into its head. Its elongated arms tried to reach and tear through my plates. I didn't care. Hell, I took off my helmet and began to pound it over and over with the clear side of my Kevlar. The burning feeling it had on my corneas combined with a chorus of screams that just wouldn't end. I would make it end. Its head snapped back as it began to be crushed. Soon, the vortex-like swirls that formed its eyes began to snap back, looking human, and looked like me. Isaac threw me to the ground. I gasped as I could feel the clear air again, my vision normal as the property, the house, everything was silent. Zeus was sat in the center carpet, surrounded by dozens of malformed, transformed adversaries that were now spending their last seconds on this earth, bleeding out. I sat up, catching my breath. I looked around. The beast with the elongated arms was laying on the floor, its head completely pulverized, my helmet embedded into it. I looked to Isaac. I'll be honest, I was shaken the fuck up. What the fuck? Yeah, you lost your shit. A bunch of them began to pour in. You were firing wildly. You started tearing them apart, he said. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't remember that, and I still don't. But I looked around. There was a hole in my wall, wide open into my kitchen. Some sort of hound-like beast, skeletal with blood and muscle being its only exterior, had its throat ripped out, and my multi-tool stuck in its skull. My rifle was on the ground, bolt locked to the rear amongst several others. I don't hear anything else, I said, staggering to my feet. Yeah, I think we might have gotten them all, Isaac said. He paused for a moment, looking around. Okay, no jinxing us this time. I think they're actually all dead, or escaped. I quickly cleared and replenished my rifle. Isaac and I secured the kitchen and basement. Right around when we got primary power back on, my radio crackled to life. November 1, sit rep. It was Montgomery's voice. I looked to Isaac before hitting the push to talk. This is November 1. Just experienced an attack on my residence. It got kinetic. We're still alive, but in a bad way. How copy? A few seconds of static. Some failed key-in attempts. Montgomery answered. Roger that. We've got an organization-wide attack. Stay put and prepare the best you can. Isaac scoffed, rolling his eyes. He kicked the mangled remains of something that was formerly intruding, now decomposing. Yeah, tell Manchester it's a little late for that. November 1 to Maine. I've got several dozen EKIA. I need reinforcements. What he said next planted a deep pit in my stomach. Dozens of PEXU solo units have not reported back in November 1. We're barely able to take accountability. Hunker down the best you can, and we will be coming for you. Maine out. There Isaac and I stood in my house. I sighed as he slung his shotgun, looking around. Well, nail and boards? I pinched the bridge of my nose. What, are we just going to board up all the holes and sit next to the radio? Yes, we did. It took around 25 minutes, however. Isaac and I successfully and haphazardly resecured the house. Cold sweat on our necks as we pushed out the fragments of my front door and pushed into the area around my vehicle that now had shattered windows, torn off mirrors, popped tires. I scoffed as I scanned over the thing under knots, Isaac looking around. Damn, they even fucked up the rims. Like popping the tires would have been enough, but I guess they wanted to turn a $70 fix into $700. Isaac dryly noted as he walked around. Zeus was rounding the house, sniffing for any traces of our foes. More like 7,000. I remember muttering. I reached for the door handle, and it came off. Not the handle, the entire door pulled straight off, and I heard the outer part of it crack as it hit the gravel. We both stood there silent, staring at the up-armored vehicle that had been downgraded into a shitbox SUV, seemingly with the bare hands of the foes we just fought. I'm sure insurance will cover it, right? Isaac asked, trying to brighten the mood. And I'll be honest, the only thing that could brighten this would be a road flare, preferably directly into my corneas. Why did it take 25 minutes? Well, apart from the fact we had to secure every window and door, we did so one man at a time as the other covered them. That takes longer than you think. It's why I hated replacing sandbags in country. Sorry, more Afghanistan war stories. We both try to push the obvious out of our minds as the last nail went into the last board of the last sill. I grabbed one of the hands of the corpses, painstakingly dragging it across the floor as the black blood soaked into the wood. I could feel the skin putrefying and melting as it kicked into the concrete. Not gonna say I missed these fools, Isaac said. He took the muzzle of his shotgun, poking it into the dog-like creature as he pushed it on a gap of my porch banister our guests were so happy to conveniently create by smashing it. This time, it was different. It was my damn house. I didn't give a shit about the Kazamoth estate house. I cared about safeguarding his son, Isaac, and Rose. I thought about her as we forced the doors closed and sat in the silent dark, the wind outside our only cold comfort. Roseanne's disappearance wasn't coincidence. It couldn't have been. Isaac's memory loss, her vanishing, and now the ghouls from underneath the 9th circle were 4 whole damn states away. I hope she's okay, I said, hands around my knees as my rifle rested on my lap. Isaac sat just a few feet away as he played with Zeus. No names, but he could tell who I was talking about. We both felt the same way. Yeah, listen, she's a smart chick. She'll be fine. I mean, weird too. He paused for a moment, before turning to me. She's okay. We're both in agreement she's gotta be a witch, right? I raised an eyebrow. For those not knowing, Roseanne at various points during South Missouri annotated and otherwise would connect to the world around her in ways that made both of us think she was on drugs back then. I'll be honest, even after our business concluded, I believed she still was. 6 years of war against folklore phantasms? Nah, if she's crazy, so am I. Then again, I am the guy who signed up to be the hammer. She didn't. She was extremely knowledgeable, and Theodore remained in that town. He definitely had something to do with it. Another knock came from the door, which was a little funny and made me chuckle, seeing as there was no door, just a set of boards. Zeus growled as Isaac went to sit up. I raised a hand. Don't answer it. Good to know not everything around my house is an invasive species. Occasionally, we would hear the sound of something outside. Neither of us went to look, however. We did keep our weapons ready. Nothing would attack again. In the morning, the sound of an SUV approaching after the sun rose above the horizon cautioned all 3 of us to approach, my suppressor and his barrel sticking out gaps in the boards. A blacked-out SUV, looking like what mine used to before its close encounter with the 5th kind stopped, headlights facing the front of the house. The morning sun had begun to slowly crawl over the horizon, the winter ensuring we got as much darkness throughout this as possible. It began to snow, creating a light flurry as the door opened, and a young man in a navy suit, slicked back hair exited. He kept his hands up, only moving one to take his sunglasses off. Montgomery chuckled at the state of things before he looked at the structure. I'll take it you've had a very entertaining night, November 1? At this time, we both had our guns trained through any gap we got. I drew my barrel back from the opening and peeked through. You can say that. What are you doing in the States? The MI6 agent lowered his hands as he carefully stepped past black gut fluid that stained the gravel leading up to my house, nonchalantly putting his hands in his pockets. Enjoying the American culture, aren't you? I'm sure the night you've had probably made you bloody hungry for a Boulder, Colorado pub sandwich, yeah? He quipped. Brits had a sense of humor that was like greeting you with a jab straight to the teeth, and somehow you found it endearing. As he approached the front of the house, I peeked at him through a gap in the boards, just happy to see another face. "What's the rest of the unit like? How are the others?" I asked. The smirk on his face faded with a strained sigh that grew a zip code-sized pit in my stomach. SMUs survived intact. Many weren't touched for obvious reasons. Others, like yourself, intelligence personnel. Well, let's just say we've got less comrades than when the night started. That's where we're at right now. Isaac and I are still holding down the fort. Surprisingly, we've gotten the actual structure resecured, but let's just say it won't be pretty for some time. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. This place is my home. I hit here when I wanted to step away, and I don't plan on running off again. PEXU has taken a considerable amount of casualties, though we've sustained it. It's time for us to hunker down, lick our wounds, and soon we will be counterattacking. Don't think it's over. It's not. Just a little bit shot to hell right now. We'll get back to it. We'll take it to them. Their home. Their blood. Montgomery has also said PEXU is interested in looking into whatever Theodore Kazimoth has been doing. Because that black ichor we found on many of those bastards that try to gut Isaac, Zeus, and I, they match samples recovered from a facility found on the East Coast. One that 4th Special Forces Group touched down at a few years ago. The same substance I encountered while I was defending Kazimoth's estate. It's not over. We'll be back. This is November 1. Isaac and Zeus. Signing off.